The last thing I wanted to go over with you is that the book goes into a lot of detail about how difficult and grueling it was to shoot several episodes in the eighth season,
Mm,
especially the Long Night episode, and how much of the crew and most of the cast suffered in almost every way, shooting for weeks on end at night or in a controlled environment to like emulate the battle itself. And it offers up a believable explanation as to why the battle was dark, and I kind of believe it. Basically, most of us watch Game of Thrones online through HBO's website, and
yeah.
some internet service providers had to reduce content resolution, especially during peak usage, where
Mm,
millions of people are all online watching the same thing,
yeah.
oftentimes in the same city or neighborhood, using the same internet service provider.
Yeah.
And because of that, they had to reduce video resolution and I guess quality. Makes sense. Yeah.
This is the thing is I don't like that excuse. And this used to happen a lot. Like when I was younger and playing computer video games, like they release some new computer game and you'd put it on your computer and it would run slow. And you're like, what? And they're like, oh, this is for people with really fast computers. And you're like, why are you not marketing it to the average person with the average computer speed? Like, why are you marketing this to people that have, supercomputers? It's the same with like with all these things. I remember a movie called 24 Hour Party People, and the music producer is like, okay, we've recorded your track in the studio. Now let's see what it sounds like on an 8 track in someone's car. And so they go out to like somebody's parking lot. This it takes place in the early 80s. And they're listening to the song in a car on this crappy 8 track, and he's like, we have to listen to this way because this is how the people are really going to be hearing it, and it's got to sound right for them.
Hmm.
Right? And it's a really brilliant scene because it's like you have this connection to like how are people actually seeing it. So for some asshole to be like, oh, we're going to use these like super high definition cameras and do all of this and then view it on our super expensive equipment with high resolution, and then we're going to ship it out, and then it's going to show up on everybody's computer screens as just a bunch of black squares like morphing around. Like, Jesus, like that's just such poor. It's just a poor understanding of humanity and connection. Like, you failed at sympathy and empathy. You failed at understanding like who the average person is in the world, if that's happening.
And before we continue on, I do want to give a big thank you to PureVPN for sponsoring this video. With coronavirus keeping us all indoors, most of us have been using the internet quite a lot lately, and one of the best ways to stay protected is with PureVPN. Not only does it protect your privacy at an affordable price, but with PureVPN you'll also be able to check out European Netflix, which is amazing, and with thousands of fast and reliable servers worldwide, you're always covered. And right now, with their Black Friday deal, you'll be able to get 88% off their 5-year membership, so hurry up and snag it before it's gone. I'll leave a link in the description below, so go on and check them out. Well, they did give their own excuses as well. The lack of lighting was intentional because they wanted to do it separate from how Lord of the Rings did it. Because if you go back to the second Lord of the Rings film,
Yeah.
The Battle in Helm's Deep, it was completely lit. But Brian Cogman, once again, lore master, he's quoted as saying, "There's a famous story about the director of the photography for Lord of the Rings. Sean Astin, who plays Samwise Gamgee, asked the director of photography about a scene in The Spider's Lair. Where is all the light coming from?" And the director responded, "The same place as the music," which is a perfectly valid answer. And
That's a good answer.
if you watch the Two Towers, there's light coming from everywhere. The battle is lit up like a Christmas tree, and that's fine. I'm not dissing it, but that was never Game of Thrones. You write a battle at night, then this is how you light it. End quote. So
Bullshit. Bullshit. How many scenes happen indoors in Game of Thrones? Okay? And in real life, it was fucking dark inside. You've got like 3 candles and it's that light in there? No. All right? So just fuck off, okay? The Middle Ages was really dark. They didn't have that many candles. You're going to have a scene inside. It's not going to be lit up. Okay? It's going to be super dark. But no, they lit those scenes up. No, it's fucking bullshit. Bullshit. We're going to have it be realistic. Come on.
the matter of
Come
killing the Night
on.
King is also brought up, and the reasoning being is that it would have been too obvious if John got the honors to do it. They also thought about having the Hound or Jorah coming in and doing it, but they wanted Jorah to go down protecting Dany, and they wanted to save the Hound for his big finale for Clegane Bowl, which the showrunners specifically named Clegane Bowl, which I thought was cool.
They definitely read Reddits, I guess.
Yeah. The only other person it could have been who had access to Valyrian steel was Arya. So, I guess that was their reasoning.
I don't know. They did it because they thought Arya was a fan favorite, and they thought it would be like completely cool and badass. No, I mean, had they set it up more? Like, had they set it, I mean, that's the thing about, so like, the whole definition of irony and like doing the unexpected is that you're doing something the unexpected, but it has to be fitting in an unexpected way. There was nothing fitting about Arya. They instead, they pulled out some quote from Melisandre, you know, a whole bunch of seasons back as if they'd like planned this all. It's like, no, that quote doesn't fucking fit. Okay. Like that doesn't justify it. But had they just set it up more, like, you know, a few more conversations about how like, you know, she now wants to kill the god of death or something, you know, like way back, or like anything. They needed more setup for that than her jumping out of nowhere and doing that, you know.
Like I said, I still stressed it should have been Theon. It would have completed the prophecy because he was the prince of Winterfell, prince that was promised. And
yeah,
so
and he's
forth.
he's defending Bran and their storyline, and you know, like I didn't think him defending Bran was really justified well, but at least the Theon story is about him and Bran, you know, like so much of the story, like this predicament he's in is from his adventures with Bran, leading to everything, leading to his situation with Ramsay, you know, so it makes sense in some respect. So but you know, it should have related to Theon or something more than Arya.
Well, to be fair to the showrunners, they originally had Game of Thrones planned as 7 seasons, the number 7 being important here. 7 kingdoms, 7 gods, 7 books, 7 seasons. But the showrunners felt like as time went on, the battles would be harder to pull off, so maybe a few movies could cover the climactic spectacle that George himself had envisioned, apparently, for the final season. And at the time, they didn't see a proper way to end the series on a TV budget, but they could do what they wanted in regards to the spectacle on a movie budget and have that make sense, covering character development and their arcs through television, and then covering the big moments in a film to complete it all, which would have been perfect. But HBO said no, telling the showrunners that they don't do movies. HBO's model is a service to its subscribers, not to tell paying customers to go to a movie theater to see how the network's own show wraps up. Which doesn't make any sense. You guys show movies on HBO all the time. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true. But also, I also just don't know if it would function as the climax of the story happens with, you know, 3 episodes to go. You know, that's the other thing is you're defeating the big bad, you know, in episode 3 of the season rather than episode 6. Like that fundamentally, I understand they wanted to be subversive and they wanted to have this other story, but the other story wasn't as good. Like the other climax, the stakes were not as high. Like you're talking about like stakes in episode 3 as the fate of humanity. The stakes in episode 6 is King's Landing and like the 7 Kingdoms. And that's way lower than the fate of all of humanity. You know?
I've always said this. Episode 3, The Long Night, felt like the penultimate episode, the dreaded episode of season 7. Because remember, season 7 was only 7 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So if you continue on, season 7 episodes, you could have combined episodes 1 and 2 of season 8 into episode 8 of season 7. And then season 7's 9th episode, the dreaded one, could have been The Long Night. And episode 10 would have been Dany deciding to go take on Cersei. And then, instead of having season 8, movie. Would it make sense to me? Like a big-ass movie where we have, you know, Dany versus Cersei's forces. Would it make sense to me? You know, a nice 2-hour movie to complete the whole thing, but it is what it is. But the book does stress that Dave and Dan did not rush the ending, despite what fans think. There was a lot of worry that the show would have carried on for too long, citing other shows that have overstayed their welcome, like The X-Files, The Walking Dead, and even Battlestar Galactica. This and the fact that it was very expensive keeping actors and actresses on contract so other studios didn't snatch them
I
up.
mean, I don't think Battlestar Galactica overstayed its welcome. I just think it did its final seasons horribly. I think the length of Battlestar Galactica was fine.
Really?
Like, oh, I mean, it was Battlestar Galactica was what, only 5 seasons?
I've never seen it, so
Oh yeah, it's let me check on that. But it was not the length of things. Like, oh, this is going on like into its 20th season, like Walking Dead, where it was a very fast paced show. It went it went 4 seasons. It didn't even go 5. It went 4 seasons. It was very fast paced. It's just that the last season was dreadful, and it just and the finale was horrible, so horrible that it much like Game of Thrones, it poisoned people's memory of the whole thing.
they do feel as though the thing that as time goes on, people will look at the final season favorably. And I forgot the example they cited, but I've kind of have seen that before, where as time goes on, people look back at something they hated, and they're like, you know what, it wasn't that bad. One example, I guess you could say, is the prequels from Star Wars, but at the same time, we had to have the
Yeah.
sequels to really look back and appreciate the prequels. So,
But I also think that the people saying that the prequels weren't that bad were the people that were children when the prequels came out and thus liked them because they were kids. And now they're
hmm,
adults and they're like, yeah, they're not that bad. I don't understand. Well, that's because you have like childhood nostalgia for it.
that is
Um,
true.
I mean, How I Met Your Mother still, like the last season still hasn't gotten good.
That is also
The
true.
last season of Battlestar Galactica still isn't good. Even shows that people remember fondly, like The Wire, like no one's going back going, oh no, you know what, season 5, it's actually okay. No, season 5 was bad. Like it's just
What,
no.
really?
I mean, season 5 was. I mean, you're talking like relatively speaking, it's season 5 was much lower quality than the other 4, but it's still pretty good. Unlike,
Hmm.
say, Game of Thrones or Battlestar Galactica, where the last
Okay.
season is just bad by
Hmm.
itself. Um, so I don't know. I don't think people are gonna go back and view the later seasons of Game of Thrones well. I just um, it's just not gonna happen.